Hello. What I have here is an image of the human brain, and there's three elements. There's the primitive brain, which regulates all of our automatic functions, if you like breathing, all our senses. Then there's the mammal brain, which is where all of our negative emotions and thoughts come from, because this is the survival brain. So it's all about flight or fear, anger. This is the bit that protects us in childhood. And then there's the human brain, which is sometimes called the thrive brain. Now, these terms come from Shirzad Shamin's best-selling book, Positive Intelligence. Now, where it gets interesting is that when we have a stimulus, we can either react in a positive way that makes a virtue out of it, or we can react in a negative way. So if we have setbacks, it's all about how we react. But habitually, we tend to, through childhood, develop the negative emotions, the fear, the reluctance to try new things, the anger, etc. So we tend to react as a matter of default in the negative way, which is down here, and it's caused by what we call mental saboteurs. But where we want to be is in the positive territory up here, our human brain, the neocortex brain. So we want to be able to discipline ourselves to react to a setback or a negative experience of any sort by going into the human brain here and thinking of what we can make as a virtue out of the situation, what we can learn from it, what new powers it gives us, what inspiration we can get from it, and how we can react positively and turn what could be a setback into a success. The unfortunate fact is, though, that negative thoughts and experiences have 3 times the weight in our brains than positive thoughts and experiences do. So by default, unless we can discipline ourselves to develop positive responses and thoughts all the time, we get dragged down into this negative territory. And it's been described again in this book as being 2 vortexes. So the higher up here you are, the more you get pulled into positive territory. But the lower down here, once you're below the line, you get dragged down lower and lower. So therefore, you need strategies that mean that when you have any sort of negative setback or experience, you've got a way of thinking as a matter of habit in ways that take you into positive territory, where you decide that you're going to put things in perspective. You're going to see the opportunity, in the setback, see how you can make the most of it, and have a vision and a plan moving forward to actually take you into positive territory. Because you can make a virtue out of virtually any setback. There are exceptions, but out of virtually any setback, if you've got the mental discipline to do it. So then the question is, well, how do you do this? Well, you can read books about it, and they'll show you how important it is to do things like meditation, to have anchors, to do what he calls PQ reps, positive intelligence repetitions. The trouble is, none of that really works unless you actually do it as well. So just knowing about it isn't actually enough. You have to actually develop the habits. So therefore, what you need is to develop this habit for 6 to 7 weeks, ideally. So you need to have training that enables you to develop these habits to turn any setback into an opportunity and to take you out of the negative vortex into the positive one. And therefore, you need to take a 6 to 7 week training program. And you need to develop these habits. And once you do, you've then got those habits instilled in you going forward for forevermore, for the rest of your life. But you need to do this. So therefore, if you want to find out how that can actually work, contact me on businessroundtableuk.co.uk or send a message through LinkedIn or Facebook. And if you want to find out any more about how this all works, we can have a conversation. But basically, you need to be trained into how to do this habitually, so that any sort of negative experience or setback, you automatically go into the positive bit here rather than the negative bit here. And the interesting conclusion to all this is, because the negative feelings have 3 times the weight of positive feelings, you therefore need to discipline yourself to be able to have 3 positive thoughts every time you catch yourself having a negative thought. So there's 2 things you need to be able to do. One is to recognize when you're having the negative thoughts, and 2, then to have the habitual discipline to have 3 positive thoughts in order to overcome the one negative, because the negative is 3 times the weight in our brains of the positive. And again, in Shirzad's book, he describes why this works. He describes that it's far more important to know the color of a venomous snake than it is to know the color of a beautiful flower. And therefore, the brain is going to remember the color of a venomous snake with far more sort of power, if you like, than it's going to remember the color of a nice flower, which I think is a nice way of putting it. So, it's really worth reading his book. The book's called Positive Intelligence. So if you want to find out more about that, I'm more than happy to connect, to message, whatever. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you found that interesting. I think it's a fascinating area.